2014 was destined to be a bountiful year for tyrannosaurs. In that year, we not only unveiled the mystery of the second tyrant dinosaur, but also established a new tyrannosaur branch called the monstrous dragon tribe. What's even rarer, we confirmed the existence of many small-sized tyrannosaur species. Therefore, Anna will, through 2 episodes, re-explore the fascinating story of the tyrannosaur family. With you, it should be clarified that the terms for tyrannosaur and tyrannosaurus can be used differently. For convenience in this show, we will use tyrannosaur to refer to the entire tyrannosaur family, while tyrannosaurus will be used specifically for the genus Tyrannosaurus. In our daily interactions, many dinosaur enthusiasts have sent me private messages expressing their anticipation for dinosaur-related programs. If you are also interested in dinosaurs, please comment with the number 1. If you are more interested in other prehistoric animals, please comment with the number 2. If you are interested in other topics, please specify. Anna will use everyone's feedback to decide the content balance for future programs in the future. Now, let's officially begin our journey in search of tyrannosaurs. The tyrannosaur family lived during the last 2 stages of the Cretaceous period. The Campanian stage, from 83 to 72 million years ago, and the Maastrichtian stage, from 72 to 66 million years ago. They were the final emperors of the dinosaur kingdom, ruling over large parts of North America and Asia. These merciless dinosaur-killing fiends, although their forelimbs were severely degenerated, leaving only 2 digits, their gaping mouths achieved an unprecedented power in history. In fact, many features of the tyrannosaur family evolved around an extremely powerful bite force. For example, their nasal bones were fused together, whereas other theropod dinosaurs usually had nasal bones separated on the left and right sides. This fused structure could more effectively disperse the pressure generated when biting, helping tyrannosaurs easily crush hard bones. Additionally, the more evolved tyrannosaurs possessed thicker and heavier skulls. This also reflects their pursuit of an ever-increasing bite force to adapt to their bone-crushing tactics. The tyrannosaur family also evolved a unique tooth structure. The teeth of most carnivorous dinosaurs were narrow and blade-like, suitable for slicing flesh. Meanwhile, the teeth of the tyrannosaur family were much larger and more robust. This made their feeding style more violent, like using a dull knife to cut meat, relying mainly on tearing strength, rather than the sharpness of the teeth. Next, we will delve into the 5 main branches within the tyrannosaur family, and then introduce some species that fall outside these major branches. The Aluromini tribe lived in Asia during the Maastrichtian stage, and includes 2 genera, Aluramus and Chiangosaurus. Their specimens are all not fully mature. The smaller Aluramus was about 5 meters long, while the nearly adult Chiangosaurus could reach up to 6.5 meters. Traditionally, the Aluromini tribe was considered part of the Tyrannosauridae family, but in recent years, many studies have suggested they might be even more primitive than the Albertosauridae subfamily. This would place them outside the Tyrannosauridae family, making them a truly basal group of tyrannosauroids. The Aluromini tribe indeed has many primitive features. They are world-famous under the name long-snouted tyrannosaurs. That long and slender snout looks just like a sharp beak, completely lacking the presence of a tyrant. Above their mouths is a row of bony bumps, which clearly distinguishes them from other tyrannosaurs. It shares some similarities with Appalachiosaurus, a more primitive species, compared to other deep-snouted tyrannosaurs. The muscle attachment points on the skulls of the Aluromini are smaller, and their bite force isn't particularly remarkable. Even the juveniles of deep-snouted tyrannosaurs had a stronger bite force than the Aluromini, of the same size. Additionally, their teeth were also smaller, unsuitable for a bone-crushing feeding style. Therefore, their ecological niche was completely different from that of the deep-snouted tyrannosaurs, even when compared to the juveniles of Tarbosaurus, which lived in the same area. The prey they could hunt was considerably less formidable. However, the Aluromini had a lightweight build and long, slender legs, giving them an advantage in speed. The speed of Tyrannosaurus could reach up to 50 kilometers per hour, surpassing even the adults of other large tyrannosaur species. The Nanshan Formation in Jiangxi, where Tyrannosaurus lived, was a famous den of thieves of the dinosaur era. The egg-stealing dinosaurs, the oviraptorosaurs here, were extremely successful, with 8 species discovered so far. Tyrannosaurus seems to have been born to hunt down these petty, agile thieves. Meanwhile, the Namek Formation in Mongolia, where Aluramus lived, had a more diverse range of dinosaurs. Besides the oviraptorosaurs, there was also the Alvarezsauridae family, known for their small size and ant-eating habits, the larger and faster ornithomiumsaurs, as well as the pachycephalosaurs, famous for their iron head technique. All were potential prey for Aluramus. In fact, the reason the Aluromini tribe had a more slender build than other members of the Tyrannosaur family is mainly related to their development process. Other tyrannosaurs, during their maturation, would undergo a secondary transformation phase, causing their bodies to become much more robust and powerful. The Aluromini tribe, however, skipped this development stage, similar to a certain panda named Wawa. However, this developmental model is actually the ancestral norm, as primitive tyrannosauroids were all like this. In short, not only did the Aluromini have a more graceful appearance, but their growth process was also vastly different from that of other tyrannosaurs. This makes them appear more primitive. In the most recent evolutionary tree, their position is even more basal than the dwarf tyrant, Nanotyrannus. This creates an interesting implication. Currently, we have not yet found arm fossils of the Aluromini tribe. If the Bloody Mary specimen with long arms belongs to the dwarf tyrant, then the more primitive Aluromini tribe very likely also possessed relatively long arms. Now, let's turn our attention to North America. This land was the true evolutionary cradle of the Tyrannosaur family. In the late Cretaceous, the western interior seaway, like a giant dragon, split North America into 2 parts, east and west. The long, narrow landmass to the west was called Laramidia, and the east was Appalachia. The Tyrannosaur family flourished in a corner of Laramidia. Although this land was not vast, during the Campanian and early Maastrichtian stages, the dinosaurs here showed incredible diversity and provincialism. The dinosaurs in almost every formation were different. The spheres of influence for the major tyrannosaur clans were as follows. Within the Arctic Circle was the domain of the frozen tyrant, Nanoxaurus. In southern Canada, the furious tyrants, the Albertosaurini subfamily, held dominance. In the northern United States, the terrible tyrant, the Daspletosaurus tribe, was the strongest. As for the lands further south, they were shared by the short-faced tyrant, the monstrous dragon tribe, and the giant tyrant, the Tyrannosaurus tribe, who divided the territory. Such an ecological situation was just like the scene of warring states of the spring and autumn period. It wasn't until the end of the Maastrichtian that the king of the Tyrannosaurus tribe, Tyrannosaurus rex, finally swept across the lands and unified the continent. It is noteworthy that during the Campanian and early Maastrichtian, herbivorous dinosaurs also showed distinct provincialism. Within the Centrosaurini subfamily, the Albertoceratops tribe, the Centrosaurus tribe, and the Pachyrhinosaurus tribe only lived in the north, while the Nasutoceratopsini tribe remained only in the south. However, at that time, there were no clear geographical barriers preventing the migration of dinosaurs in a north-south direction. To explain this unusual phenomenon, scientists speculate that the difference in latitude may have played a significant role. Although the area of Laramidia was relatively small, it stretched across a very large latitudinal range, leading to completely different climates in different regions. In northern Laramidia, coniferous trees were lush and abundant, while the south was a world of flowering plants. This diversity in vegetation directly influenced the habitats and distribution of herbivorous dinosaurs, forming a unique ecological structure. Tyrannosaurs faced fewer restrictions, because hadrosaurs and ceratopsians in different areas did not differ significantly in nutritional value or hunting difficulty. However, different types of habitats, such as open grasslands and dense forests, may have driven tyrannosaurs to develop different hunting strategies and camouflage colors. At the same time, differences in plant species could also affect the proportions of herbivorous dinosaur species, thereby indirectly affecting the survival and evolution of tyrannosaurs. Additionally, the situation of modern birds also provides us with some clues. In today's ecosystem, although birds have superior dispersal capabilities, they exhibit a high degree of provincialism, especially in tropical regions. For birds, the existence of competing species is often the main factor limiting their expansion. Tyrannosaurs were likely no exception. Once a tyrannosaur species had adapted to the local environment, it would gain an advantage in competition with external rivals, thereby preventing the intrusion of other tyrannosaur species. This ultimately created a situation of thriving, competing vassals for the tyrannosaur family in Laramidia. The Albertosaurini subfamily is the most primitive branch within the tyrannosaur family. Its members include Gorgosaurus, which lived in the Campanian stage, and Albertosaurus, which lived in the early Maastrichtian. The body length of these dinosaurs was typically 8 to 9 meters. Few Albertosaurus individuals could reach 9 to 10 meters. The most prominent feature of this subfamily is the pair of lacrimal horns. These horns are located on the lacrimal bone in front of the eye socket, having a prominent shape that is sharper than in other tyrannosaurs. This splendid pair of lacrimal horns may have been an important feature for these dinosaurs to attract mates, and in life, they probably had bright colors. During courtship, they may have placed special emphasis on eye contact, which is why their eye sockets were so beautifully adorned. We previously mentioned that, except for the Alioramini tribe, other species of the Tyrannosaur family underwent a secondary metamorphic development. As they grew, the Albertosaurini subfamily was no exception. Taking the famous Gorgosaurus as an example, as juveniles, they had a lightweight build, longer hind limb proportions, and narrow, sharp teeth, well suited for tearing muscle. As they aged, their hind limb proportions gradually shortened. Their head and torso became larger and more robust, and their teeth also became thicker and larger, suitable for crushing bone. The significant difference between juvenile and adult dinosaurs suggests they played completely different roles in the ecosystem. The agile juveniles, active like cheetahs on the African savanna, were suited for hunting small and agile prey, for example, ornithomimids and oviraptorosaurs, while the adults were, like lions on the savanna, capable of hunting larger and more robust prey, such as ceratopsians and hadrosaurs. If we only consider the adults, the Albertosaurini subfamily still maintained a relatively graceful build, possessing long, slender legs. Their speed could exceed 40 kilometers per hour, faster than the Tyrannosaurini subfamily, but not as fast as the Alioramini tribe. The robustness of their heads was somewhere between the Alioramini tribe and the Tyrannosaurini subfamily. However, their bite force had already reached a terrifying level. Research shows that the bite force of Gorgosaurus even surpassed a host of stars like Spinosaurus, Allosaurus, and Carnotaurus on the list of dinosaurs of the same size. It was second only to Daspletosaurus from the Tyrannosaurini subfamily. But one thing that is surprising is that there was once a study that estimated the jaw closing force of Albertosaurus at only 3,400 newtons, equivalent to a quarter of the bite force of Gorgosaurus. However, the methods used in different studies are completely different. We cannot simply compare the numbers between papers. In a study that included both Albertosaurus and Gorgosaurus, the bite force index of both was nearly identical, and superior to that of non-tyrannosaurid theropods of the same size. Historically, the Albertosaurini subfamily was often considered to be a gregarious animal, because at one bone bed, the remains of more than 20 individuals of Albertosaurus of different ages were found together. However, many scholars hold a different view, suggesting that these dinosaurs may have gathered together due to drought or flood, and some signs seem to corroborate the latter hypothesis. At one bone bed, researchers found evidence of Albertosaurus scavenging on hadrosaur carcasses, but what was surprising was that one of those Albertosaurus had been gnawed on by its own kind. Based on this situation, one could speculate that these dinosaurs may have fought over the carcasses, much like Komodo dragons. In that process, intense conflicts would lead to some Albertosaurus being killed by their own kind, and even cannibalized. If they were a close-knit group, they certainly wouldn't resort to killing each other just to fight over food. In recent years, research on Gorgosaurus has also revealed evidence against the gregarious hypothesis. In the stomach of a 4-meter-long Gorgosaurus, the remains of a small species of Oviraptorosaur were discovered. This prey is really too small. It's impossible to share with gigantic adults. Therefore, at the very least, they would not form packs consisting of different age groups. Additionally, the habitat of Gorgosaurus has also been misunderstood, especially in early film and television works, like Walking with Dinosaurs 3D and March of the Dinosaurs. It was depicted as an Arctic-dwelling creature. This setting was actually a leftover problem from an era when the Arctic tyrant, Nanoxaurus, had not yet been named. So Gorgosaurus was forced to play the role of this creature from the frozen lands, but fossil evidence clearly shows that it never once touched the frozen throne in its life. That's all for this episode. See you all in the next one.